I want to ask you about these sanctions. We keep hearing about them. I'm wondering why we haven't already punished Vladimir Putin. Why not proactively impose sanctions, say, for the military buildup in and of itself?
I think that's about to change. That's a really good question. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Lindsey.
Thanks for the great job you did in Germany. So I had a meeting 2 days ago with Democratic and Republican senators about what to do next week when we come back in session. I think there was agreement that we should sanction for the buildup, look at the damage done to the Ukrainian economy, look at the disruption to world order. So impose sanctions now for the provocation of 100-something thousand troops on the Ukraine's border. Number two, I think there'll be a lot of support to move NATO forces into the Baltics to reinforce NATO at a time that Putin is being threatening to the region, and to have a Lend-Lease program with the Ukrainian military where we will provide advanced weaponries to, in case there is a war, that there be as many dead Russians as possible if the Ukrainians want to fight. So we should have sanctions now, not after the invasion.
Senator, I know you have an amazing ability to talk very bluntly with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and they respect you. And I would love to know, what are we saying? What are you saying to them? The same crowd that is complaining about the situation is the crowd that voted against the Nord Stream 2 sanctions. As you know, this pipeline is not quite online, and there is still time if we were really aggressive about our diplomatic action instead of rushing to boots on the ground.
Well, here's what I'm telling them. Don't let Biden hold us back as a nation from doing what we should be doing. In 2017, during the Trump administration, we were buying 18,000 barrels of oil from Russia a day. Now it's over 250,000 barrels a day. So our energy policies are empowering Putin. The gas line into Germany from Russia is a cash cow for Putin, and we should be more aggressive in trying to shut it down. But I'm telling my colleagues that the Ukraine cannot be viewed in isolation, that if we allow Putin to dismember the Ukraine, then the Chinese are all in, I think, to take Taiwan. And the biggest world change of all would be if the Iranians break out to try to get a bomb. If the Iranians see Putin getting away with dismembering the Ukraine, they're going to make a dash for a bomb. Then you're going to have a war between Israel and Iran. So if you don't get the Ukraine right, there's going to be a ripple effect that will turn the world upside down.
Ukrainians are using the hashtag right now, we are ready, essentially for a possible invasion. It's a country of about 40 million people. Kiev, the largest city, just under 3 million people. Our diplomats, Antony Blinken among them, are negotiating from a position of weakness. After only a year in office, 5 months ago, we all saw what happened in Afghanistan, that botched withdrawal. 13 Americans lost their lives, 10 Afghanis, 7 children lost their lives. Joe Biden has never been held accountable for that. How big a role does all that play in what we're seeing play out right now on the Ukraine-Russia border?
Well, weakness in one place creates provocation everywhere else. So you're dead right. The Germans are being less than helpful by threatening not to allow arms to flow into the Ukraine. I'm not asking for American troops to go into the Ukraine, a democratic country that's been a friend of the United States. I am asking that we provide them the weaponry they need to defend themselves against an invasion by Putin, who's a thug. NATO was created to be a check and balance against Soviet Union communist expansion. Well, NATO needs to be a check and balance against Putin's desire to recreate the Soviet Union. Ukraine is not in NATO, but they're a democracy. They've been very friendly. We need to help them with arms. We need to sanction Putin now, I think personally, for the provocation. And we need to send more troops into the NATO regions that live in the shadow of Russia to show a commitment for our allies in the region. And if we don't, we're going to pay a heavy price with China and Iran.
Senator, I know you spoke with former President Donald Trump just recently. Do you have any insight into what the 45th president thinks about this situation? Because I think Joe Biden is dealing with a situation where in 2024, all signs point to him maybe not being president in 2024 for whatever reason. That's 3 years from now. But he could be setting us up for a really difficult situation.
Well, this is what we don't talk enough about as Americans. When Rick was in Germany, we pushed our NATO allies to do the 2% GDP on defense. That's sort of the standard for NATO. Germany is not at 2% spending on their defense. And Trump got NATO to contribute $400 billion to our common defense because they were basically taking us for a ride. But here's what Putin doesn't understand. The likelihood of Joe Biden being president in 2024 is about as likely as me being in the NBA in 2024. I don't like my chances.
Never say never, Senator.
The next president of the United States, yeah, I know I'm selling myself short for a good reason. The next president of the United States will not be Joe Biden in 2024. I hope it's Trump. But if Putin invades the Ukraine, the next president cannot have a normal relationship with Russia after a Ukrainian invasion. And I hope the Russians are understanding that you're going to sever the relationship for a very long time. And if Donald Trump is in power in 2024, you will regret invading Ukraine in 2022.
Senator, we don't have an ambassador in Ukraine. Have you heard any rumblings of who they're thinking of sending? Have they sent any names to you? Do you have any recommendations for who should be our U.S. ambassador to Ukraine?
Like somebody now that knows what the hell they're doing. Like, what's going on here?
Right.
You know, it's one of the hottest spots in the world. Get somebody in place with a background that can reassure the Ukrainian people that we're with you. This speech that Biden gave a couple of days ago, the news conference, was an absolute disaster. It undermined our efforts to contain Putin. So get somebody on the ground that can reassure the Ukrainian government and military that, hey, we're going to be with you.
Senator, does that have to be a career official, or can it be a political appointee?
I'd pick Rick. It can be anybody with a skill set that understands Russia, that can reassure the Ukrainian people, that can. The problem is, what is our strategy? We're waiting to after the invasion to do everything. That's way too late. I like the idea of reinforcing NATO in the shadow of Putin's Russia. I like the idea of being more aggressive selling weapons. When Congress gets back, we should go all in helping the Ukraine, not send ground troops, but Congress should bolster our position and help Biden if he won't help himself.